Okay, so the Love is Blind Season 9 reunion finally dropped, and I have thoughts. Because going into this, everyone expected absolute chaos. Secret babies, messy confrontations, receipts being pulled out of dresses, all of it. And while we definitely got some of that, what we actually witnessed was surprisingly mature. I know, I'm shocked too. Just like the season was, this reunion was, shall we say, a bit anticlimactic. But here's the thing. This reunion ended up being less about drama and more about closure. We got genuine apologies, real accountability, and some truly beautiful moments that honestly restored my faith in this cast. Jordan proved once again why he's the MVP of this entire season. Kacie got attacked from multiple angles, but handled it with surprising grace. And Edmond and Calibria had one of the most emotionally intelligent conversations I've ever seen on a Love is Blind reunion. And yes, Megan announced her baby, but thanks to internet sleuths doing the Lord's work, literally nobody was surprised. The tea was already spilled before she even opened her mouth. But what I found most interesting, how this season ending with 0 marriages says something pretty significant about whether love is actually blind. And we need to talk about that. So grab your chicken smoothies and let's break down everything that happened at this reunion because there's a lot to unpack here. Before we dive into all the reunion tea, smash that subscribe button if you love Love is Blind breakdowns. Hit the like button because it genuinely helps this channel grow. And definitely hit that hype button. It's YouTube's latest way to support creators. Also, I dropped a video before this reunion covering 17 burning questions we all needed answered, so go check that out after this to see which ones actually got addressed. Trust me, it's worth the watch. Alright, let's talk about the overall energy of this reunion because it was genuinely not what I expected. Going in, based on all the rumors in the trailer, I thought we were about to witness World War III. Secret relationships, alleged manipulation, people getting called out left and right. It had all the ingredients for absolute chaos. But what we actually got was a reunion where most people showed up, ready to take accountability, offer genuine apologies, and get real closure. Don't get me wrong, there were definitely some uncomfortable moments and heated exchanges. But compared to other Love is Blind reunions where people are screaming at each other and storming offstage, this was remarkably civil. I think what helped is that it's been over a year since filming wrapped. Everyone's had time to process, heal, and gain perspective on what went wrong. Plus, the cast has been watching the season air in real time, seeing how they came across, reading all the Reddit threads and TikTok commentary. So they showed up knowing exactly what people were saying about them and ready to address it. The social media spoilers definitely changed the dynamic too. When the biggest bombshell of the night, Megan's baby announcement, had already been thoroughly investigated and essentially confirmed by internet detectives, it took away that shock factor. The cast were actually the only surprised ones, as it seems everyone except for Jordan had absolutely no idea Megan had a baby. So let's get the big reveal out of the way. Megan announced that she had a baby boy named Brooks, who is now 2.5 months old.
I am a mom now. Oh my God. What?
The father is Paul, who was sitting in the audience, and they met through a mutual friend in July after filming Wrapped in April. They got pregnant 3 months into dating, had their ups and downs, but are now very happy together. And look, this should have been a jaw-dropping moment. A cast member having a secret baby after telling their ex-fiancé they weren't cut out for motherhood? That's reunion gold. But thanks to the US Sun publishing photos of a mystery man with a newborn at Megan's house, and Megan disappearing from social media for 8 months, and various Reddit threads connecting all the dots, everyone already knew. The only people who seemed genuinely shocked were some of the cast members, because apparently only Kacie and Jordan knew about it beforehand. Props to both of them for keeping that secret through an entire pregnancy and baby shower, by the way. That's genuinely impressive in the age of social media. But here's what I loved about this segment: Jordan's reaction. Because someone had actually DM'd Jordan before the reunion, trying to stir up drama and tell him about the baby. And instead of letting it blindside him on camera, he reached out to Megan directly and she was transparent with him. So when she made the announcement, Jordan was nothing but supportive and gracious.
So I do appreciate the transparency and the honesty, but you're going to be great parents. I have no doubt in my mind about that.
No bitterness, no passive aggression, just genuine kindness. This man really is just a class act through and through. Megan explained that in that moment when she told Jordan she wasn't cut out for motherhood, she was questioning a lot of things. It was an emotional day, but now she knows more than ever that she was meant to be a mom. And Brooks is her whole world. And honestly, people can change their minds about wanting kids. What she realized is that she didn't want to be a stepmom in that specific situation with Jordan. Not that she never wanted to be a mother at all. The whole thing was handled maturely on all sides, which was refreshing to see. Comment below, was this announcement anticlimactic since we all basically knew? Or was it still nice to get official confirmation? Since we're already talking about Jordan, let's take a moment to appreciate how he showed up to this reunion. Because throughout the entire thing, he was just this steady, mature, kind-hearted presence. When discussing Luca, his son, Jordan talked about how fatherhood is a privilege in a way that was just genuinely beautiful. He clarified that when he said he regretted introducing Luca to Megan, he He didn't mean he regretted Megan as a person. He regretted the instability for his 5-year-old son of bringing someone into his life and then having them leave. That's a father being protective of his child's emotional well-being, not someone throwing shade at his ex. He also addressed the diabetes comments from earlier in the season. Apparently Mike, who wasn't at the reunion, had reached out to Jordan privately, apologized for conflating type 1 and type 2 diabetes, educated himself on the difference, and made a large donation to Jordan's charity. And Jordan's response was basically, I forgive him, everyone else should too, the more you know. Just taking the high road consistently. When asked about his dating life, Jordan said he's been on a few casual dates, but isn't ready to introduce anyone to Luca yet, which again shows how thoughtful he is as a father. He's not rushing into anything, he's protecting his son, and he's taking his time to heal. And the cherry on top? It was Jordan's birthday during the reunion. They brought out a cake, everyone sang happy birthday, and it was just this sweet moment that reminded us why so many people fell in love with this guy throughout the season. He's genuine, he's kind, he has a great sense of humor, and he handles difficult situations with grace. If there's one person who came out of this season looking better than when they went in, it's Jordan. Hands down. All right, now let's talk about Kacie, because this woman faced multiple confrontations throughout the reunion and honestly handled them better than I expected. First up was the Patrick situation and the infamous engagement ring. Patrick basically asked Kacie in principle whether he should have the ring back since they're no longer together. And Kacie had actually brought the ring with her to the reunion specifically to return it to him. But before they could just hand it over, Chris Paul from the LA Clippers showed up, and they did this whole basketball shootout where whoever won got to keep the ring. Kacie won the shootout. In heels, mind you. Patrick was planning on giving her the ring back in Denver, but the hosts weren't having that, and he coughed it up right there. She won it fair and square. Let's move on now. It was this lighthearted moment that diffused what could have been really tense, and Kacie gave what seemed like a genuine apology for how she handled things with Patrick. She admitted she didn't handle the situation correctly, that she truly cared about him in the pods, and that she was sorry for the pain she caused. Patrick accepted the apology and even said, I still got love for you, which was sweet. They seemed to leave things on decent terms, which was nice to see after all the messiness. Then came the Joe situation, which was more complicated. Vanessa asked if Kacie had been attracted to anyone else from the pod squad after meeting everyone, and Kacie confirmed she and Joe had dated for about a month to month and a half after the show. Joe was her third connection in the pods, so there was already some foundation there. Both of them were very clear that their timelines didn't overlap with their respective engagements. They didn't start talking until May, which is after filming, and they emphasized nothing crossed while they were still with Madison and Patrick. It just fizzled out because, as Kacie put it, they were both coming off telling other people they loved them, and things got too intense too quick. But Madison wasn't buying it. She brought up that the night before Joe broke up with her, they ran into Kacie at an event, and Madison saw Kacie with 2 palms on Joe's chest, giving him in what Joe himself described to her as googly eyes. Madison felt like whatever connection Joe and Kacie had affected her engagement. Then Madison dropped this line.
We're at the pool party, I saw Kacie, and she had the audacity to tell me we are Eskimo sisters.
For those who don't know, that's a crude term for women who have been with the same man. Madison was clearly offended that Kacie would say this to her face. Kacie's response was that it was said as a joke, and that from her perspective, they had a good conversation about both being burned by Joe. She framed it as them bonding over their shared experience.
I can't believe you're sitting here saying it like this. We had a good conversation. We left after to the group, and you're like, I'm really glad we had that talk. And I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
Seems like we're all done.
Madison saw it completely differently, as Kacie being insensitive and disrespectful about the situation. This was one of those moments where both people have completely different perspectives on the same conversation, and will probably never know exactly what tone or context it was said in. But it was definitely uncomfortable to watch them go back and forth about it. Meanwhile,
Did you know about Kacie and Joe? Were you at this pool party as well? Like, where did you fit into this whole situation?
I don't even know if I knew. I swear, I think I just showed up at the pool party and all of us just got hammered and laughed and joked.
there was also a brief moment where Kait tried to bring up something about Kacie and Brandon being all over each other at some party, but Kacie immediately shut it down, saying, so false. It's not even funny. It's so not true. Patrick, who was asked if he was there, said, I want nothing to do with this, and basically removed himself from that conversation entirely. So that accusation got dismissed pretty quickly. Overall, Kacie was definitely in the hot seat for a good portion of this reunion, but I will say she owned up to what she needed to own up to, apologized where appropriate, and defended herself when she felt she was being falsely accused. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Kacie deserve all the heat she got, or were people being too harsh? Now let's talk about Nick, because honestly, he showed up to this reunion PR trained and mature. Instead of trying to explain away all the criticism he's received, he just acknowledged it and took accountability. The biggest moment was when Kait confronted him about his approach in the pods. She said, and I quote, "It felt like you went into ChatGPT and looked up pickup lines for how to get a girl to fall for you. That is such a specific and brutal accusation." She pointed out that he said the same things to multiple women, including telling both her and Annie, "You just jumped to the top of my list on day one." And Nick didn't deflect. He admitted he messed up, that he'd never had a playbook for dating two women at once, and that it was wrong to say "I love you" to Kait when he still had another connection. He said he looked in the mirror that night after breaking up with Kait and hated the person he saw. He apologized genuinely and thanked Kait for not reciprocating feelings that weren't true. Kait acknowledged the apology but said, "Maybe it's performative too, I don't know." Which, fair. It's hard to know if someone's apology is genuine or if they're just saying what they know people want to hear. But from what I could see, Nick seemed sincere. It seemed that the producers had Kait on to stir up some drama, but the drama ended up not being as messy as they wanted. Nick also addressed how Joe and the other guys were talking about him at that Denver event, and instead of using that as an opportunity to gain some sympathy, he let everyone know that he messaged Joe right away to let him know that it wasn't a problem at all. Joe apologized to him then and also during the reunion. Everything there seemed squashed, so we moved on. That's growth, and I respect it. As for Nick and Annie's relationship, they seem to be friendly now after a year and a half. Annie clarified that she was texting her best friend Haley during their breakup, because Haley was asking if she should still book a flight for the wedding. Annie texted 90% sure no wedding, because she could feel Nick breaking up with her in that moment. So the texting situation that seemed so suspicious actually makes sense in context. Annie also said she doesn't wish she chose Brandon instead, which addresses a common fan theory. She seems at peace with how things ended. Overall, Nick came across as someone who's genuinely tried to learn from this experience. Whether that perception holds up long-term, we'll see. But at this reunion, he showed up ready to be accountable, and that counts for something. Allie and Anton's segment was interesting because it highlighted how much miscommunication plagued their entire relationship. The big issue that came up was the strip club conversation that happened at brunch with Anton's friend's girlfriend, Melissa. Allie explained that what bothered her wasn't strip clubs existing. It was that she and Anton had discussed their return to religion together, and the strip club thing felt contradictory to those values they supposedly shared. Anton was upset that Melissa brought it up in the bathroom rather than at the table where it could be addressed openly. He addressed Melissa as someone who was looking for their 5 minutes of fame, and from looking at the drama that she stirred up, it sure seemed like it. Anton felt blindsided because Allie never actually talked to him about it after that brunch. He said if it was such a big issue, why wasn't it brought up so they could discuss it? Which is a fair point, but Allie said there was just so much going on. They were on opposite schedules with the night shift, they weren't communicating well, and that issue got lost in the shuffle. Allie also mentioned that outside the pods, Anton felt like a completely different person. She said it was like talking to a wall, and that he wouldn't greet her when he came home from work, would just come in, eat breakfast, watch TV, and go to sleep without engaging with her. Anton's perspective was that he was exhausted from working 14-hour shifts, and that day-to-day life isn't always going to be deep philosophical conversations. Sometimes you're just tired and need to decompress, which is also valid, but clearly Allie needed more emotional connection than what she was getting. There was also discussion about Allie's friends at the bachelorette party, questioning Anton's ambition and comparing their financial situations. Anton said watching that conversation was concerning because he wondered if it influenced Allie's decision, even though Allie said it wasn't about money but about values and lifestyle compatibility. And then, in a lighthearted moment, Allie admitted that one of her first red flags was Anton wearing flip-flops in Baja.
Say the moment was when you realized that Anton maybe wasn't the right fit for you.
I mean, lightheartedly when he wore flip-flops in Baja for our first encounter.
That's all it takes?
The pics were out.
Was it the way he wore them and walked, or was it his actual toes?
It was probably a combination of both.
Oh man.
If I'm being honest.
Everyone laughed, and even Anton took it in stride. Their current status, Anton has been dating someone named Miranda for about a year, and she was in the audience. He seems really happy. Allie is keeping her dating life private, but seems to be in a good place. They both got closure on what went wrong and seem to leave on decent terms. Okay, this segment was probably the most emotionally intense of the entire reunion, but it also had one of the most beautiful resolutions. Calibria and Edmund addressed the manipulation claims head-on, and it got heated, but ultimately they found real closure. Calibria explained that in the pods, Edmund's emotional nature didn't bother her because she could hear the vulnerability in his voice. But in the real world, seeing his body language and reactions, the crying started to feel like manipulation. Specifically, she said that when she would bring up something that upset her, instead of being accountable, Edmund would cry, drop to his knees, and say, "I just love you so much, I need you." She gave a specific example. Someone said Edmund was being obnoxious while they were moving into the apartment. When Calibria told him he was being loud instead of acknowledging it, he allegedly got on his knees and started professing his love. To Calibria, this felt like emotional manipulation, using tears and declarations of love to avoid accountability. She also said that when Edmund announced he was done crying, he became dismissive instead. She gave examples of coming to him off camera when she was upset, and him literally just waving his hand and walking away from her while she was crying at their kitchen table. Edmund's response was that he doesn't want to manipulate anyone. He just speaks from his heart. He was hurt that his genuine emotions and vulnerability were being interpreted as manipulation. He also said he doesn't remember many of the specific incidents Calibria described. Vanessa made a really insightful observation here. She said that Edmond seems to be an eternal optimist who blocks out conflict and difficult memories as a survival mechanism. That's actually a pretty common trauma response. Your brain protects you by not fully encoding painful memories. But the flip side is that when someone is trying to tell you about something hurtful you did, you genuinely can't remember it, which makes them feel gaslit even if that's not your intention. They went back and forth about what happened on and off camera, and it got tense. But then something beautiful happened. Calibria talked about calling her mom and saying, "He said I need to be kinder." And her mom said, "Maybe you're kind in your way, but see what kindness looks like to him." That advice hit Calibria hard. She realized she was trying to love Edmund in her way, but she needed to understand what love and kindness looked like and meant to him. We all need mamas like KB's. She then gave what I think was the most powerful apology of the night. She said, "You didn't deserve to be called a name. No matter how you slice it, no matter how slim it is, when they love you, they talk to you with love. And I was not talking to you with love in those moments. Please never accept that kind of love, no matter how bad you want it. That's not what love looks like." And Edmund responded by saying that he learned from this experience that he would never find a woman like her again, that she was amazing, and that he's grateful for their time together. They both ended up crying and hugging it out. It was genuinely one of the most emotionally mature moments I've seen on reality TV. They acknowledged where they both went wrong, took accountability, and left with mutual respect and gratitude for each other. This is what closure is supposed to look like. Comment below. What's the best relationship advice you've learned from your experiences? A few other quick moments worth mentioning. Joe had to address multiple conversations about his timeline with Madison, Kacie, and his current girlfriend Avery. It was awkward, but he maintained that nothing overlapped and apologized to Madison for comments he made about her body during the season. He said he meant no shame and that their physical attraction was strong. But Madison rightfully called out how his words opened the door for people to scrutinize her appearance online. That apology seemed genuine, and Madison accepted it as good as we can get. And surprisingly, Blake, who left the show early, surprised everyone by showing up at the very end to wish Jordan a happy birthday. Alright, let's zoom out for a second and talk about what Love is Blind Season 9 as a whole says about this experiment. Because this was the first season in the show's history where 0 couples got married. Not one. And I think that's significant. The premise of Love is Blind is that emotional connection can transcend physical attraction. That if you really get to know someone's heart and soul first, the physical stuff becomes secondary. But this season proved that for a lot of people, love isn't blind. Physical attraction does matter. Lifestyle compatibility matters. Financial alignment matters. And you can't always know if someone is going to be your person just from talking to them through a wall. Now, I'm not saying the experiment is fundamentally flawed. We've seen successful couples come out of this show. But I do think this season highlights the importance of casting. You need to cast people who genuinely aren't super focused on looks, who are mature enough to handle conflict, who are emotionally available, and who actually want to get married. Not just people who want to be on TV. Looking at this cast, I think there were some people who were genuinely there for the right reasons, like Jordan and Allie and Calibria, but there were also people who seemed more interested in the experience itself than in actually finding a spouse. And when you mix those two types of people, you get chaos and heartbreak. Maybe what Love is Blind needs is stronger vetting in the future. Really dig deep into people's dating history, their attachment styles, whether they've done the inner work to be ready for marriage. Because just throwing 30 people into pods and hoping for the best isn't cutting it anymore. We've seen what happens when the formula doesn't work, and it's a lot of pain for the people involved. That said, I do think this season gave us some genuinely beautiful moments and important conversations. Jordan's grace, Calibria's mom's wisdom about understanding your partner's love language, the various apologies and accountability we saw, that stuff matters. These people may not have found forever love, but hopefully they found growth and healing. So what are my final thoughts on this reunion? Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised by how mature and thoughtful most of it was. Yes, there were uncomfortable moments and heated exchanges, but overall people showed up ready to take accountability and get closure. The biggest takeaway for me is that this cast genuinely seems like good people who just weren't right for each other. And sometimes that's okay. Not every love story is meant to have a happy ending, and the experiment doesn't work for everyone. What matters is how you handle yourself when things don't work out. And I think most of this cast handled it well, at least at this reunion. Was this the most dramatic reunion ever? No. Were there shocking revelations that nobody saw coming? Not really, thanks to social media spoilers. But was it a satisfying conclusion to a chaotic season? I think so. Everyone got their moment to speak, apologies were given and accepted, and people seem to leave with closure. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you're subscribed because I'll be covering future Love is Blind seasons and other reality TV drama as it happens. Hit that like button if you made it all the way through this with me, and definitely check out my previous video where I laid out 17 burning questions before this reunion. It's interesting to see which ones got answered and which ones didn't. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay messy, stay informed, and remember, sometimes love isn't blind, and that's okay. Growth and closure are just as valuable as a happily ever after.